Every spring, millions of homeowners carry $60 bag of lawn food out of the garden center, believing they just bought greener grass. They didn't. They bought a prettier bag, a bright picture on the front, a promise printed in large letters, a brand name they recognize, and a price high enough to make them believe something special must be inside. But grass cannot read. It does not know what store you visited. It does not know what logo was printed on the bag. It does not care whether the package said premium, professional, advanced, triple action, or guaranteed green. Grass responds to nutrients. That is all. And the one nutrient most people are paying for when they want that deep green color is not a secret at all. Farmers have bought it by the plain sack for generations. The garden center gives it a prettier name. The farm store gives it a number, 2100. That was the number printed on the plain white bag my father-in-law carried home every spring. No picture of a perfect lawn, no smiling family, no promise of professional results. Just a white sack from the farm supply store. The first time I saw it, I thought he had bought the wrong thing. I had married into an Amish family, and I was still learning that plain-looking things often did more work than expensive-looking things. Our neighbors bought the bright bags. My father-in-law bought the white one, and by June, his lawn was darker than all of theirs. That bothered me, not because I cared so much about grass, because I had just spent good money on one of those pretty bags myself. That answer annoyed me because it was both simple and not helpful. So I asked again. He pointed to the number, 2100. Then he said one word. That was the whole secret hiding in plain sight. Nitrogen is the nutrient that pushes green color and leaf growth. When a lawn looks pale, thin, or hungry, nitrogen is often the first thing people are really trying to replace. The expensive bag knows that. The cheap bag knows that. The grass knows that. The only person who usually does not know it is the homeowner standing in the aisle trying to decide which picture of grass looks most convincing. That is the trick. You think you are comparing brands. Most of the time you are comparing nutrients. And the nutrient does not become stronger because the bag costs more. My father-in-law's white sack was ammonium sulfate, 21% nitrogen, 0 phosphorus, 0 potassium, and sulfur riding along with it. Nothing fancy, nothing mysterious, just a fast source of nitrogen that farmers have used for a long time. I asked him why everyone did not buy that instead. He smiled. That is where the real lesson begins. The expensive bag is not always useless. Let me be honest about that. Many premium lawn fertilizers use slow-release nitrogen. That means the fertilizer feeds more slowly over several weeks. It is more forgiving. If you put it down a little unevenly, you may get away with it. If you forget to water right away, you may still be fine. If you do not know what you are doing, the coating on that expensive bag protects you from yourself. That is what you are paying for. Forgiveness. My father-in-law was not buying forgiveness. He was buying the nutrient. And because he bought the nutrient directly, he had to follow the rule. The one rule. The rule that decides whether your lawn turns dark green or scorches brown by the next afternoon. He loaded the spreader carefully. Not a mountain of fertilizer. Not half the bag. Carefully measured. I expected him to dump plenty in because the stuff was cheap. He did not. That sentence has saved me from more mistakes than I can count. Ammonium sulfate works fast. That is the good news. It also burns fast if you treat it like a toy. That is the bad news. You do not throw it down on a hot, dry lawn and walk away. You do not spread it in clumps. You do not guess. You do not feed the grass like you are salting popcorn. You spread it evenly. Then you water it in immediately. Not later, not tomorrow, not when you remember, immediately. That is the step most people skip, and that is why they blame the cheap fertilizer when the real problem was the person holding the spreader. That was the sentence I remembered because the white bag was not dangerous if you respected it. It was only dangerous if you treated it like the expensive bag. Premium lawn food is designed to forgive laziness. Farm store nitrogen is designed for people who pay attention. There is a difference. The rate he used was simple. About 5 pounds for every 1,000 square feet of lawn. Spread as evenly as possible, then water deeply enough to wash the granules off the grass blades and down into the soil. That is where the roots can use it. On the blades it can burn. In the soil it feeds same fertilizer fertilizer, different result. That is what most people never understand. The product is not the whole method. The method is the product plus the timing plus the water. Leave out one part and the whole thing changes. Within a week, the lawn began changing, not all at once, not like a painted floor, but slowly. The pale areas deepened. The thin patches began filling. The whole yard looked like it had woken up. I remember standing there in the evening, looking across the grass and thinking, that came from the plain white bag. My father-in-law saw me staring and said, grass does not need a fancy story. But before you run to the farm store and buy the first bag you see, there is another mistake people make, and this one is everywhere. It is in half the homemade lawn recipes on the internet. Neighbors repeat it. Garden groups repeat it. People swear by it, and most lawns do not need it at all. Epsom salt. I had heard about Epsom salt for years. If you've spent any time reading lawn advice online, you probably heard about it too. Mix it with water. Spray your lawn. Watch the grass turn dark green. People swear by it. My father-in-law only smiled then. He asked me a question. I answered honestly. It's magnesium sulfate, he said. I stood there quietly, because I still didn't know. That was the point. Most people don't actually know what they're feeding their lawn. They know what somebody told them. My father-in-law believed those were two very different things. He explained that magnesium certainly has a place in healthy soil. The problem is that most lawns already have enough of it. Adding more magnesium to a lawn that isn't deficient usually doesn't make it greener. It simply makes the homeowner feel like they're doing something. Grass doesn't become greener because a trick is popular. It becomes greener because it gets what it's missing. And most of the time, the missing nutrient isn't magnesium. It's nitrogen. That was another lesson I carried home. Do not feed what isn't hungry. It sounds obvious. But think about how often people do exactly the opposite. They buy products because they're trending, not because they're needed. The lawn never asked for Epsom salt. The internet did. My father-in-law always trusted the grass more than the advertisement, and he pointed to something I hadn't even noticed. The color of our neighbor's lawn. One side was dark green. The other side looked almost yellow. The spreader hadn't been adjusted correctly. The fertilizer wasn't spread evenly. People blame the fertilizer, he said. That made me laugh. But he was right. Even spreading matters. If you dump too much in one spot, you'll see dark stripes. Too little, and you'll see pale ones. The lawn tells you exactly how careful you were. That's why he always walked at the same steady pace. Never rushed, never stopping halfway across the yard. Every pass overlapped the last one just enough to avoid streaks. Watching him work reminded me of somebody planting rows in a field. Nothing wasted, nothing hurried. One afternoon I asked him something that had been bothering me. He thought for a moment before answering. That answer surprised me. Then he explained. The expensive bag isn't really selling fertilizer. It's selling confidence. The coating slows everything down. The mistakes aren't punished as quickly. The cheaper bag asks something different. It asks you to pay attention. Water it, measure it, spread it evenly. Do those things well, and your lawn never knows whether the nitrogen came from a $60 bag or a plain white sack from the farm store. The grass only knows it was fed. There was one last thing he always did after feeding the lawn. He put the hose away. Then he left the yard alone. No walking back and forth. No checking every hour. No wondering if it was already greener. He left. One afternoon when I walked outside looking at the lawn again, I smiled. He nodded. That sentence reminded me of planting seeds. The work happens before the results appear. Grass grows the same way. The roots begin using the nitrogen long before your eyes notice the change. By the following weekend, the lawn looked completely different. Not because of one miracle product, because of one simple nutrient applied the right way. That was the lesson. Not cheaper fertilizer. Better understanding. The older I get, the more I realize my father-in-law wasn't really teaching me about grass. He was teaching me how to think. Everywhere I looked, people paid extra for better stories. He paid for better results. Those are rarely the same thing. The lawn didn't care what logo was printed on the bag. The roots never stopped to admire the package packaging, the grass responded to what was actually inside. I think people do the opposite. We often buy the story first and ask about the ingredients later. My father-in-law always reversed that order. He wanted to know what was inside before he cared what was printed outside. That habit saved him money his entire life, and it probably saved him from buying a lot of things he never actually needed. So if you're standing in the lawn care aisle this spring looking at rows of colorful bags promising the greenest lawn on the street, remember one simple question. What is my grass actually asking for? Not what is the bag promising, not what is the commercial saying. What does the lawn actually need? Sometimes the answer is nitrogen. Sometimes it's water. Sometimes it's simply mowing a little higher. The lawn always tells the truth if you're willing to watch it. And if you decide to try the same white bag my father-in-law carried home every spring, remember the one rule he never skipped. Measure carefully, spread evenly, water it in immediately. The water is what turns that inexpensive nitrogen into plant food instead of brown burn marks. That one step is the difference between someone who tells you the cheap fertilizer ruined their lawn and someone whose neighbors quietly wonder how they keep their grass so green every summer. Now I'm curious, what has worked best for your lawn? Have you found a simple trick that saved you money? Or are you still carrying home the expensive bag every spring? Let me know in the comments. Sometimes the best lawn lesson isn't hidden in a premium package. Sometimes it's sitting on the bottom shelf of the farm store in a plain white bag that nobody notices.